Hello everyone, it's Infographics right here. Welcome back to another reaction video. This time we reacted to another Infographics show. I forget the name for a little bit. Infographics show and a video. It's called The Most Scary Creepypastas on the Internet. Which I'm probably not gonna know some of these creepypastas. I may or not. I don't know, but I'm not afraid to watch this video just to see what kind of creepypastas that are scary. So I was meant to be their friend. I'm just kidding. Yeah, we're reacting to most scary creepypastas on the internet, and yeah, it's kind of something I want to see what kind of creepypastas we're talking about here. So, anyways, guys, make sure you like and subscribe, and check out Infographics show, and watch this video for yourself if you want to. And we shall react to this video right.
A young man sits in his bedroom late at night, his glum face illuminated by the light of a computer screen. Man, he feels bored. He's sick and tired of scrolling through social media posts that detail his friends' allegedly perfect lives. He's done with politics and left and right and everything that's wrong in the real world. He wants to escape, and then he finds it, a video written, designed, and produced by the Infographics show. It's a list of the scariest creepypastas on the internet. What will this young man learn as he's listening to this gripping list of well-told lies? He'll learn that there are some utterly frightening and disturbing stories out there, tales that lie like bloodied, broken car wrecks on the information superhighway. Number 10. Jeff the Killer. Okay, so some of you creepypasta fans will be thinking, come on, Jeff the Killer deserves to be higher than number 10. Well, we do think it's good. It's deranged. It's creepy enough, for sure. But we also think there are better stories out there. The rest of you will be thinking, who the hell's Jeff the Killer? Good question. Let us explain. Jeff the Killer is a kid with an annoying mom who's likely got a bad case of narcissistic personality disorder. Jeff has his own mental problems too, and it doesn't take very long for the story to show them off. He has a fight, and you might say that Jeff goes a bit overboard with the violence thing. He protects his brother from receiving a good old-fashioned beatdown from some kids who live on the street Jeff's family just moved on to. Jeff is evidently a bit messed up from his mom and pop, and he doesn't seem to have embraced the family. On top of that, he keeps having these small trance-like psychosexual episodes described simply as a weird feeling. He beats up those kids on the block while waiting at a bus stop. He does this with a pump, easily taking out a stereotypically cool kid, fat kid, and thin kid, and nerdy kid. Young Jeff breaks their bones and uses a knife he's taken off one of the kids, all in a morning's work in this white picket fence neighborhood. Jeff's brother takes the blame for the vicious beating. He gets carted off to prison, and the family deals with it so well they're at a party not long after. His mom is so unaffected by losing a son to prison she almost seems perverse. She waltzes into Jeff's bedroom one day and announces to him that it's party time. That said party is full of overbearing, to Jeff, alcoholic parents. Jeff retreats to the garden, but doesn't find much solace in there since it's full of small kids, one with a speech impediment. Believe it or not, the gang that Jeff single-handedly broke to pieces shows up in the garden. What ensues is an end of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood-style beatdown in which Jeff yet again proves that he's good with his hands. Guns are pulled. Yeah, those little school kids are armed and ready to shoot. Parents scream and prove to be eternally ineffective. The fight's crescendo involves implausibly flammable vodka and Jeff's face going missing. The best part of the story is when Jeff pulls off the bandages and finds his face is like shiny white leather and he no longer has eyelids. And then the story says, "Jeff," said Louis' brother, "it's not that bad." "Not that bad," said Jeff. "It's perfect." Naturally, he lets out a mad laugh at that point. Fast forward to the next chance Jeff gets to make use of a kitchen knife and the scene in the family bathroom. Jeff's mom walks in on him and she sees her son has carved a Glasgow smile into his face. He goes on a stabbing spree which ends with his brother. Sticking the blade into him, Jeff says his tagline, "Go to sleep." That's pretty much what he'll say to you just before he sticks the cold metal into your chest. Do stories get any better than that? Yeah, they get a lot better. Number 9. The Rake. So, Jeff the Killer was a simple feel-good story about a boy growing up and feeling frustrated. The Rake, however, is out of this world, akin to something you might see in the SCP Foundation. What's the Rake? Well, it's a kind of monster. A monster that's occasionally spotted and either causes a person to spoil their underwear or do quite the opposite. The other reaction is closer to how a person might greet a puppy dog. Documents that refer to this monstrous being date back to the 12th century. This is one document from 1880 translated from Spanish. "I have experienced the greatest terror. I see his eyes when I close mine. They're hollow, black. They saw me and pierced me. His wet hand. I will not sleep. His voice. unintelligible text. This is from 1691. He came to me in my sleep. From the foot of my bed, I felt a sensation. He took everything. We must return to him. We shall not return here again at the request of the Rake. Who is the Rake? Some kind of succubus, incubus, an SCP? That's for you to find out. The Rake is well written and interesting. It also led to numerous theories regarding what it is. Number 8. Anora Petrova. This one might not be the most horrific of stories, but the concept is great. Hats off to the writer that came up with it. Basically, a young person is bored at home and decides to Google herself. You can only imagine how surprised she is to find a Wikipedia page dedicated to her. She's not famous, by the way, so that's why it's weird. That page contained all her personal information, her age, where she grew up, etc. It also talked about her love of ice skating. At first she was like, "Dad, did you do that to impress me?" And he said, "No." She should have known that it's not all that easy to create a new Wikipedia page. Anyhow, she then creates her own account and tries to edit the page, but then finds that the page is blank except these words. Anora Petrova is a selfish little bitch who is going to get what she deserves. Excuse the language, don't shoot the messenger. She ends up losing a lot of friends for this and other things. And then after a series of snubs in school, she finds the page is changed to this. Anora Petrova is a pathetic little orphan. 2 years pass and she doesn't get any more popular. She's so unpopular, in fact, that she moves to Switzerland. Still, you can't hide from the internet. She looked at her wiki page there and it said Anora Petrova died friendless and alone. It also stated her death date for the first time. We know all this because she wrote it in an email sent to one of her remaining friends. The last thing she says is that she's locked in a room in unfriendly Switzerland waiting for her death date to pass. You could call this an internet parable about cyberbullying and how being hyperconnected isn't always a great thing. Number 7. No End House. Who doesn't love a good haunted house story? This one we think is the best on the Creepypasta wiki. Basically, a heroin junkie convinces his buddy to try and win $500 by agreeing to walk every level of a haunted house. Okay, we know that sounds a lot like the very real McCamey Manor in the US, but people don't really get hurt here. Not a lot of people anyway. What happens next is part psychological horror, likely written by someone who likes to smoke a lot of weed, and part McCamey Manor style horror. It all gets very weird from there, with the rooms of the house sounding like the days of Sodom from the Marquis de Sade's seminal book on torture. Yes, sadistic, that word comes from the author's name. Suffice to say, the last room is the worst. We won't spoil it for you. Number 6. Robert the Doll. There's actually a doll called Robert. It's real. This story is not entirely fiction. Robert the Doll is a sailor with an ugly head that looks a bit like a potato. The story revolves around a kid who was named Robert Eugene Otto. He receives the doll as a child and he names it after himself. He loved Robert the doll, but it seems that the doll wasn't all that keen on his owner. After a while, he started playing tricks on the kid. Sometimes his parents would hear two voices when Robert was in the room with the doll. Sometimes he'd scream in the night only for his parents to go into his room and find a sleeping child near his doll. All the furniture in the room would be overturned. This kind of thing went on for a while, and although Robert's parents didn't believe in sentient straw dolls, Robert the doll was retired to the loft. Better safe than sorry. But then Robert grew up and he inherited the house. We won't tell you what happened to Robert and his wife after the doll was introduced again to the lower floors, but we'll say that things went a little crazy. We like this one because the house and the doll are real. You can go visit them today. Number 5. Doors. In this story, we learned right away that the narrator is adopted. He talks about his adoptive family, the loving mother, the strict but decent father, a sister who he's protective of. In the first part of the story, everything seems pretty much normal apart from a few family quirks. It then goes into hyperdrive and a lot of blood is spilled at the hands of a madman. We really can't tell you much more, otherwise we'd spoil the shock ending. That's why we like this story. We just didn't expect this particular ending. Number 4. The Bad Dream. Some stories on the Creepypasta are what you might call short and sweet. So much so that this one is over before you can picture what something would look like wearing your mother's skin. You'll know what we're talking about once you read it, but don't go yet. We've saved the best until last. Number 3. Psychosis. What could be scarier than losing your mind? Have you ever been paranoid before? Have you ever thought everyone was out to get you? Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. It's not the knowing that's scary. Just because you're paranoid, it doesn't mean they're not after you. That's how this tale goes. It's about a young man that lives alone and is afraid to go out in the outside world. He has contact with people, but not so often, and only in the form of electronic communications. His isolation begins to bother him. The phone rings and it's a wrong number, but is it? Outside, it's dark and gray and foreboding, which kind of mirrors what it's like inside his head. He tries to go outside, but never seems to make it any further than the hallway. Whenever he looks through the window, all he sees are dark clouds and rain. The tension keeps building, making the story one of the best creepypasta noir tales. We won't spoil it for you, but what we will tell you is that this man's diary starts to sound very, very weird. Number 2. Slenderman. This faceless ghoul is known as the Slenderman, and it hunts the young folks that are obsessed with it. It has long arms and is seen wearing a smart suit. And if you get too near this thing, what'll likely happen is you'll end up looking like someone has jammed pencils in your ears and thrown boiling water over you. Be careful, because one day you might see it slip by the window looking like a shadow, but with the strength to kill. The story literally came to life in 2014 when two 12-year-old girls from Wisconsin were playing hide-and-seek with a third girl. They lured the girl into a wood, whereupon they stabbed her 19 times. She survived, but only just. Just before the attack, one of the girls said to the victim, "Don't be afraid, I'm only a little kitty cat." They then proceeded to stab her in the arms, legs, stomach, liver, and pancreas. The victim shouted out through the pain, "I hate you, I trusted you." When the cops interviewed the girls and asked why they'd done such a thing, they both said they did it for the Slenderman. It was kind of a blood sacrifice, something to appease the monster. They believed that if they killed the girl, they would be protected by it and would be able to live with it as servants in the forest. That didn't happen. Instead, they were charged with attempted murder in the first degree and sent to a juvenile detention facility. That's a testament to the hold this story has on some people. And that's why it's number 2. Number 1. The Russian Sleep Experiment. But our favorite creepypasta story is the Russian Sleep Experiment. Like many stories on the wiki, it's easy to believe that it's true. It isn't, but it's convincing enough. As the story goes, the Soviets were covertly experimenting on people back in the 1940s. That's believable because, hey, which superpower back then wasn't doing terrible things in the name of science and war? This experiment was simple enough. Soldiers in the field needed to stay awake for longer periods of time. So the Soviets were testing a kind of stimulation gas that was sprayed into a containment chamber. The test subjects were prisoners who were falsely promised that they'd be let go if they completed the 30-day experiment. What happens next is nothing short of horrendous. In short, screaming leads to self-harm. Self-harm leads to test subjects tearing out their own organs. That leads to test subjects engorging themselves on said organs. It's pretty disgusting and brilliant, and it gets crazier. Did it really happen? Go watch this entire video on it. Russian Sleep Experiment Explained, or have a look at this.
Tearing out your own organs, that's gross. But yeah, that was kind of interesting. That was the most scary creepypastas on the internet, and yeah, I didn't know that number 1 was that horrifying. Just like tearing out your own organs and then gross. But yeah, so yeah. Anyways, guys, if you guys enjoyed that, make sure to like and subscribe, and check out the video you haven't seen already, and subscribe to the Infographics show. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys. Night, guys. Goodbye.